So I have an interesting thought to share with you, dear viewers, because all of life is totally systematic and cyclical. Now, in order to get a good overview of the cycles of life and then also hopefully live in harmony with them as much as possible, and thus basically be the healthiest and the wealthiest and the most blessed that you can be, you should simply start reading and studying a book called Self-Mastery and Fate with the Cycles of Life by H. Spencer Lewis. Okay, so I have accomplished what I'm talking about numerous times successfully. What I'm going to talk about is basically utilizing the cycles of life to our maximum benefit. It's as if what you're doing is you're surfing on or you're riding on the right cycles, and they're carrying you from A to B and then from A to B, or like you're riding the right cycles, you're utilizing the right cycles of life, and this is then carrying you safely through life. And this can go on forever if you just simply coordinate your movements in harmony with the cycles of life. What that actually translates into is making the right decisions and the right moves at the right times, basically every day. And it's actually rather simple. So what this could look like is this. And also you should know that this opens up an eternal amount of possibilities in life. This is where the horizon is really big and everything becomes possible. Yet, everything that is possible even is still structured and perfectly ordered aright in life, in these and through these life cycles. So it's as big of a thing as it is, it's still something we can oversee and comprehend and systematically live. So what this looks like is this. Say, for example, I intend to make $5,000 within the next 30 days so that I can, rent a place, buy myself this, that, and so on and so forth. So then there's a time when I can put the application in personally somewhere that's a good place where, because of the right time and the right life cycle, the right daily period of the cycles of life of 3 hours and 25 minutes, for example, an A period of the cycles of life, during a positive short lunar unit. What's a positive short lunar unit? It's a 12-hour cycle of the tides where there's either a positive increasing force that leads to a low tide turning into a high tide and reaching a maximum peak, or the opposite. Okay, 3 hours before a high tide, you have a purely positive increase that goes on. Sorry, that was a 6 hour. Yeah. Okay. 3 hours before a high tide, it's a positive unit. And 3 hours after, let's go logically. You have a low tide. Then you have 3 hours where it's increasing. I think that's new. So it has to do with, okay, look, simplify this, double check what I say, I rectify any mistakes made hereby. Just make sure to understand that you've got the first cycle you have to pay attention to is a daily period of 3 hours, 25 minutes. That's the shortest one on the radar. The next one is the short lunar unit that manifests itself in the tides. So that's a 12. Yeah, it's like the time it takes from a low tide to a God damn it, to a high tide. And if I'm correct, that's 12 hours, that's 6 hours, because you always have them switching off within, right? Because I have 3 hours now till the next high tide almost in my nearest location, maritime location. Why is that relevant? Because I can see what state the universe is in this area, basically, because of what the tides are doing at the ocean, because that shows directly what the moon, what phase the moon is, if it's negative or positive. And it does show itself because the tide will peak at a certain point and it will be at its lowest again at a certain point. And in between these points, there's either decrease or increase going on, somehow invisibly, energetically, leading to what happens in Earth human life activity. So we're in a daily period of A. You've got 3 hours, 25 minutes of this A period. At any given point in time, there's a short lunar unit or a long one. So you've got a high tide at the nearest maritime location at, say, 6 p.m. Now it's 3 p.m. You're within 3 hours of a peaking tide. So you're in a positive space right there. Then we had, for example, just to give you an example, and the details, you can map these out yourself. It's easier than it sounds. So you've got a new moon at a particular time, date, hour, and minute, and second. From that moment on, for 3.5 days, it's a negative lunar long unit of 3.5 days after a full moon. Sorry, after a new moon. Right. Then, 3.5 days after a new moon exactly, then you have another positive 3.5 day lunar unit. And this goes on and on and on. The reference point to identifying the negative or positive long lunar units of 3.5 days that you could be in at any time is the date of the new moon or the date of the full moon. So sometimes you have to calculate forwards or backwards to identify what cycles of life you're in your actual position right now. I, for example, know that on the 29th, and that's in 26, 3 days from now, at 12 p.m., so on Saturday at 12 p.m., we have a new moon by the minute, 11:55 a.m. right here. Bam. That's the new moon. So now we're in a time frame, all right. So because it's 3.5 days before a full moon right now, we're actually 3 days before one, approximately. We're in a positive long lunar unit right now. This long 3.5 day lunar unit that's positive, combined with a short lunar unit that's positive. And what is that? It's basically 3 hours before a high tide. These two positives make a double positive. What that is like a totally masculine, positive, life-giving, and increasing and providing energetic quality being present in the universe around you at that time. So what this looks like then is that what you're going to do during this time is going to be supported big time. The next cycle to pay attention to is the annual life cycle period you're in. So that's essentially like this. On your very birthday, there are 7 52-day units every 365 days. And in every one of these 7 annual life cycle periods, that's the same every year, actually. There's different things that are perpetuous in business, health, personal life, and there's things that aren't. If you know what things are perpetuous and you seek to accomplish them at the right times, it automatically works. And we also have the ability to foresee whether something is basically going to work or not if we pay attention to the life cycles of the life cycle and or of course life cycles of the particular thing, because based on the beginning of a certain thing, we can determine what its end result will basically be. And also, I have to emphasize that on top of this, It's like you could foresee the future, yet what's more important, and this is actually more important for us to know and to practice, is that it's one thing if I can judge the outcome of something based on its beginning within the cycles of life. That's like, okay, I can see what is going to happen here. Yet what's more relevant and what will determine what will actually happen is what we actually make happen. So having a certain knowledge of the cycles of life, it's as if you can see the future, yet you actually have an even more important ability, and that is to actually determine the future. And what that actually is then is that is what a master does, who is literally determining his or her destiny on a daily basis. And this is where we then can actually master our destinies. And this is where it becomes really interesting, because actually nothing in the universe is left to chance. They are actually, let's say, very few, and at a certain point, basically no unknown variables involved. If you map things, if you navigate and you accurately be watchful and maintain an overview of what's going on in your life cycles, what you're doing, you can see where things are going to go based on where they started. And so what I'm saying, that actually there's a certain point where if you're accurate with your if you accurately navigate the cycles of life, and you can achieve your objectives, and there are not any unknown variable factors very much anymore, other than the plus perfect sort of a divine guidance involved in everything. So it's like, okay, if I set out to accomplish this particular thing, if I coordinate all the things that I do to accomplish this at the right times, it is automatically optimally supported by universal providence. That is, remember, giving different packages of providence at different times. So you're always accessing the most amount of necessary providence to accomplish a certain thing. And this does work, and I've done this. I remember, just to give you an example, there was a one time when I was wandering, and within like a day, within less than a day, I went from wandering in the wilderness with, a few bucks in my pocket to living in a state-of-the-art monastery, and then like from there on, then making thousands of dollars. So like what I'm saying is that within this quick, basically within a time frame, shall we say, of, we could say that within 3 hours and 25 minutes, your life and your life situation can be completely transformed. Because the key really is that you have to understand that divine providence is like dispensing or giving different types of providence, different packages of providence at different times. So what's actually going on is that divine providence is always available. There's always some minimum amount of divine providence that is being given in the universe, in life, in the world around us, and everything at a certain time. There are just varying degrees of this. There's always a standard amount being given. So if you know what time, what things are available, it's like you're just simply reaching for whatever providence it is, whatever thing that you need, and you're getting it because it's automatically being given at that time. The key is to know when to access what. And to know this, all you have to do is read the book and know about the daily periods. And now look, remember, there at any given point in time, there are about 7 cycles that we are in. And of course, there are cycles within cycles. So if you really would like to be able to accurately operate and, like, I'm talking about basically achieve whatever objective you have with what could be said to be like 99.9% accuracy, maybe even 100 actually, because things always do pan out better than you plan too. No matter how good you plan, that's, thank God Almighty. So like if you were to pay attention to 7 different life cycles at any given point in time. Like I said, the daily period of 3 hours, 25 minutes, the short lunar units that manifest as low or high tides, then the long lunar units of 3.5 days that have to do with the new moon. 3.5 days after a new moon, you've got a negative 3.5 day lunar unit. Then 3.5 days after a new moon, you've got another 3.5 days of a positive one. So the long and short lunar units, right? So daily period, then long lunar units, short lunar units, long lunar units, then the annual life cycle period, and that actually includes health, business, and personal life cycle period. And then you've got, so that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then 7, and then 8, a maximum of 8. So the daily period of 3 hours, 25 minutes, if you've got that on the radar, you're watching that, you're getting that, you know what one you're in, you're cognizant of what daily life cycle period of 3 hours, 25 minutes, then the short lunar unit, the long lunar unit, then the annual life cycle period of 52 days that you're in, based on the fact that on your birthday, you got 7 52-day cycles all year round, same every year. So the annual life cycle period, right, that is including the health, personal, and business life cycle. And then you're paying attention to the overall simple period of human life you're in that ranges from 0 to 144 years, right? The human being can live, that the human can live. If you know what one of those you're in, and those are units of 7 too, from 0 to 144. And then also, though, if you know your soul personality based on your exact birthday, then you pretty much know all there is to know at that point so that you can make a plan and you can, it's like you can have a divine inspired idea, a cosmic impulse, can judge it, see, okay, is that something to act on or not to? Is this the time for this or is it not the time for this? And then you can coordinate, you can set an objective, you can coordinate it correctly, and within the right window of opportunity, this particular thing then will be automatically supported, divinely supported, so that it will actually become manifest. And the reason why that's the case is because it's like the same system with the 4 seasons. You plant in springtime, you take care of the plants, during the spring and summer, and then around autumn, the trees bear fruit and you harvest the fruits because it was timed right. It all worked and it bore good fruit. So that's actually how this works. What I'm telling you is actually true, although I have to say, I apologize if it was a little bit of a lot of information. And essentially, to get what I'm saying and to utilize it, read the book and go by the book. Yet what I have said is correct, although I may have miscalculated the length of the lunar short units. But double check it for yourself. I think that it's sufficient to still good to share this, because it seems like 98% of what I said is true and 2% maybe have to be corrected. Like I said, the tides, you have high and low tides, and every 12 hours, so every 6 hours, right, you go from 0 to 6, from a low tide to 6 hours, and then it's high, and then another 6 hours and it's low. Yeah, double check that, make sure it's correct, and thanks for watching.